you guys doing? Picked up something at the hardware store. Thought I'd give it a whirl here. It's silicone rubber. Can't really read all of it. It's got some directions. Some in English, some in German, but just silicone rubber. Just got a bunch of these little small parts I know I'm going to use a lot of, like these car stops and these barriers and tires and things like this. So I wanted a real easy way to duplicate some of this stuff. I'll start off by making some frames to pour this silicone rubber into, and using my styrene sheet here. It's a German broom racing sign, I guess. So I just marked this off. I'm just going to make some strips here to form some just little squares, I guess, to pour this rubber into. And I'm making a few different molds here, and I don't think I put all of them on here, but I got a few here. So I've got some of these little piece strips here that I'm just going to take and size up and put into a little square. And I'm using styrene because I just have all the tools for styrene, so you could use anything you want. I made a round one out of the top of a cup. It doesn't really stick to plastic so much, or this doesn't. It seems to work just fine with styrene. Pulls out. The molds come out of this just fine. So I just put some of these together, put some little corner bracing on here to hold them together, make sure they're square. I use hot glue, just glue them together, get me a mold that's not going to leak out. I use this here. I don't know if this is common practice or not, but I was so afraid I was going to put these parts in here, and when I poured that rubber in there, I was afraid they'd float, so I went ahead and tacked them down with that. And what I got from the instructions is like number of drops, for however much you're doing. So I just kind of guesstimated on this and just dumped in the hardener, mixed it up real good. Did it with a stick. I have some brushes or some things to mix this with, but electric stuff, but I didn't want to get a whole bunch of air bubbles in here. And whenever you pour this, you want to use a thin stream, and I think it's like this with any mold rubber. Just use a thin stream to kind of reduce the amount of air bubbles in it. Pour it in one spot, keep pouring it on itself so that it'll just kind of mold out into the parts. This stuff poured really well too. So I get this in there, and you can kind of see some of the air bubbles coming to the top there, which is good. And after it dries, I just pop this off. That's one of the reasons we use that hot glue. It works real nice. I'm not really concerned about the little frame I made, but it stayed together. And look how easy this slides out of there. I mean, it just came right out. So I have all my pieces in there. It didn't look like any of them floated, so that was good. What I'm doing here is I'm just kind of breaking it apart, just kind of working the rubber to get it to release from the pieces. And I'll pull the pieces out. And I'll push from the bottom. It's pretty limber. I just push from the bottom, push the pieces right up. Pull them out. I clean this up a little bit too. You can see there's like some that come up in underneath there, and I took some scissors and cleaned that out. And here I've got some little porta potties. Just take those out, push them from the bottom. They kind of slide out. As soon as I can get a hold of them, I'll pull them up. You can see a little bit of the rubber got in underneath, but the air keeps it, traps it in there so it doesn't fill up the whole thing. I think I pulled out little pieces there. Now this stuff is some kind of plastic. It's just, it's got plastic and some other stuff. It's just like, it reminds me of powdered sugar, and it's messy. Read the directions on this, but their directions were telling me whenever I did it was just too thick. It wouldn't pour right, so I actually thinned it out a little bit, made it pour real nice. The problem I did have though with doing it this way is a little bit of shrinkage. It didn't shrink too bad, but I think next time I do this, I'll probably let it rise above the top a little bit. And I just pour this into some of the other molds that I made. Spread it out with this little popsicle stick. And here's the barriers. I just pour this in, let it settle in. Let it sit and dry. Let it dry overnight. Pieces come out just fine. Pull them out just the same way I pulled the originals out. They came out just fine. And you know something about this too is that with this this material, it's actually a little bit more, I don't know, like concrete maybe, you know? Using the plastic, it doesn't really absorb the paint real well. But I got like some little 55-gallon drums here. And here's my little porta potties. Those came out really nice. But it's supposed to be some kind of a plastic mix. And what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of bending this around, just trying to get the parts to release. They didn't stick too bad. It wasn't like a major deal. And I just pull all these little pieces out, get them out here. Mostly what you're seeing, all these little parts or little plastic pieces on there. It looks like a bunch of scrap on there, drips and stuff. Whenever I put it on, it, you know, it flakes off of the top, and so a lot of the little trash you see on the table is from just the excess that was on the top of the mold. And then I'll clean the molds up. Get all the piece parts that I'm putting together here and just kind of get everything straightened up. Here I just wanted to put a little bit of paint in here and kind of show you how it holds paint and stuff. So did a couple of different ways. One is using this concrete Woodland Scenics paint here. And so I just brushed this on. And then the other one I tried, of course, my camouflage colors that I love so much. And that's how it came out. Certainly could do a little bit more work on the painting and detailing and stuff, but I get these molds cleaned up and get them ready to go again and make as much as I want to make here. I hope you enjoyed it. Y'all take care.